Tonight's regularly scheduled City Council work session and agenda meetings. We're going to start off. We have a small crowd tonight. Councilman Brown and Councilman Conyers are both not able to be with us tonight. So committee updates. I'll start with you, Councilman Robinson.
I don't have any.
Okay. Councilman Boone?
It'll be a short meeting. I have none as well.
And I have none as well. So I think we're going to have a short agenda and work session meeting, and we'll have a little, probably maybe a gap between that and the council meeting. Department head updates. I know there's a lot going on, so this is your opportunity. Pat? Okay. Lynn? Richard?
Richard, we had such a good thing going.
Well, good news and bad news. Just a couple things very important to our citizens, and we did pushing this out today. We're planning to resume curbside recycle pickup starting Monday week, so that's October 19th. Normal schedule, normal route, so our citizens who've been holding on to it, put it on out. Also, we're opening the landfill and recycle drop-off that same date on Monday, October 19th. Just remind you, our citizens, of our hours Monday through Friday is 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Saturdays are 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. and we are closed on official city holidays. I do want to remind our citizens and everybody that we'll accept all recyclables at the drop-off, as well as the landfill will only accept household rubbish, small quantity construction and demolition debris, bagged vegetative debris, old mattresses, furniture, etc., rubbish. We are asking to not bring to us bulk vegetative debris such as limbs, trunks, stumps, storm-related. That we just don't have the capacity to process in our internal landfill, and no bulk construction demolition debris. If you clean up your yard and you got just a little bit of blown down fence, bring it to us. If you've got 2, 4, 6 truckloads, put it out by curbside, because we still have to take that to a certified line landfill. So let our contractor do that, and it's more cost effective for that. And then just a reminder is that even though you may be a citizen, have a sticker, if you're a contractor, you can't bring us contractor loads of debris. This is for individual residents to drop off landfill items. But we're excited about that. Just to kind of give you an update, our debris contractor, even though some days you pull down the street, it doesn't look like it, they are blowing and going. They're exceeding on average now close to 11,000 cubic yards a day. The bill as of the close of business Friday was $1.75 million and counting, but they are moving. I think that we're probably a little slightly behind schedule on our 0 to 28 days for our first pass, but we're not far off of that, and hopefully tomorrow's meeting will kind of give us an idea of if we're going to be able to cover at least every road once by the 28th day. Today started day 22. They are working to certify 3 more trucks today, with the goal to have additional 5 more total units in the system by week's end. And then, just that we haven't forgotten normal things. You will see some activity downtown starting this evening of upsizing some of the street trees, as well as we're going to be hanging lights as we go. So that we've gotten caught up enough on some public works to get back on some things that we hoped to have had done by now, but we had a hurricane instead. So that's really all I have to share, and I appreciate everybody's patience, and we will get to your street and we will get that debris hauled out.
Rich, a few questions about the curbside pickup of the debris. I had someone ask me the question about if a truck shows up and they're picking up vegetative debris, they won't necessarily pick up the C&D, right? They may, another truck, and I told them I don't know that it would come by the same day. They're probably on different cycles, aren't they?
That is correct, and right now, you basically have trucks that are doing vegetative, and you've got a minority of trucks that are going and getting C&D. If somebody has a C&D pile that they feel like it's been missed, let us know, because that's one of the things we've been doing for the contractor, trying to identify those sites. I know there was one right across from Public Works that they finally got to, because that's kind of that's low-hanging fruit right now, because right now C&D is probably less than 5% of the total debris out there. So if any citizen has a C&D exclusive pile, let us know, give us a call, and we'll make sure it gets on the list, because that truck that's assigned to that is looking for that right now, and if they know exact address, we can get that targeted very quickly.
And for the viewers, would you please explain to them the difference between a vegetative debris pile and a C&D?
Yes, sir. First of all, vegetative is limbs, trunks, stumps, anything that came from a living, growing thing that got damaged or knocked over in the storm. Construction demolition would be anything that is man-processed. If it's wood, that, for example, pressure-treated wood, we can't put that in an inert vegetative disposal area. It has to go to a lined landfill because of some of the chemical content. So pressure-treated fence wood, if houses was damaged and you have shingles or insulation or anything that comes from a construction project that is construction-related, that's C&D, and it needs to be in a separate pile. And right now, if the piles are mixed up, that contractor's passing them by. They'll eventually get to them, but that's a mixed load, and every bit of it will have to go to the actual Magnolia landfill.
And I've seen, so these are just questions that I have as I drive through town. I've seen some very well-intending citizens. It looks like they may be bagging, some of their yard debris. Maybe they're bagging leaves and they're putting it in the pile with the vegetative debris. Should they do that or not do that? I don't know the answer.
If they bag the leaves in one of the paper leaf bags that you can buy at various home centers, that is fine. If it's black plastic or plastic bags, no, they will not pick it up.
I've seen black plastic bags of debris thrown in big piles of vegetative debris. They just don't know.
Yeah, and one of the things we've been doing with our trash folks is we've been trying to run routes and look for those piles of black bags and been collecting those up and processing them locally. So,
then I have one more kind of a question or maybe a statement. I want to educate the public to this as well, and I'm going to also probably mention this in council comments because I think it's important, and correct me if I'm wrong. If you have a tree in your yard that was not damaged by Hurricane Sally and you just decide it's time to take that down, you're not supposed to put that out there in the hurricane debris pile. It's not our responsibility to pick that up. Now, I know people are taking advantage of this time to cut trees and put piles of vegetative debris, but that is strictly not supposed to be allowed. Am I correct?
that's correct. And if you'll recall, by ordinance, we say that when an individual is offering contract services, such as tree removal or heavy landscaping, it says that their responsibility, that price is to include the removal of the debris created from those contract services. So in this case, if you have decided you want to remove perfectly healthy trees from your property, okay, and you hire a contract services, that fee you pay to that contractor should also include that contractor hauling all the debris related to those contract services away. Now, the differentiation, if there's a tree that has fallen over in your yard and you hire a contractor, then it is appropriate, since that tree was damaged by the storm, to put it on the roadside. But if you've just decided to take this time to remove perfectly healthy, undamaged trees from your yard, the ordinance of the city says that contractor is to take that debris with them as part of the contract services rendered.
I can see where not saying they would, but I can see where a contractor that comes in and removes a healthy tree could save themselves a lot of time and money by sticking it out there on the road, and our debris removal contractor paying for it, or our tax dollars paying for that, or FEMA dollars us paying for a portion of that. So some people just don't know, though, so I think that we need to educate the public that that's not allowed.
And we have been working very closely with code enforcement to try to monitor that. It's a lot of times after the fact.
It's been really hard, but I had a citizen that told me today that their neighbors did just that.
We're pretty confident we've seen a lot of that, but after the fact, it's hard to determine whether that was a limb that came from a tree that was perfectly healthy or a tree that was damaged. And so it's hard to forensically change it unless you catch them in the act. So.
Right, that's right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question, Rick.
Yes, sir.
I was noting, these trucks will run in 7 days a week.
That is our contract terms. On Saturday, they did not run because of the weather, and in advance of that, they had asked for a down day for Sunday, and because they, at that time, would have gone 20 days straight, basically 10, 11.
That answered that then. I just noticed some trucks and I got some calls.
So
That answered that.
So our goal is now is that they owe us another 3-week straight run without a break, so. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica?
Evening. So one thing that the hurricane and every other thing that has happened in 2020 has done is derail our plans for events here in the city. We are coming up on our major event season, and we need some guidance from the council on how we want to proceed. I did send all of you a packet, but I do have copies of that here if you would like a copy right now so that we could go through it real quickly.
Thank you. Thank you.
So due to the governor's current order, and we obviously have no idea whether she plans to extend this further or not, but due to her current order, you've got recommendations in front of you for Veterans Day parade, lighting of the trees, movie in the streets, and the Christmas parade. Just to go over it really quickly, this year instead of a Veterans Day parade, we are recommending that we discontinue that for this year only, because the majority of the people who are participating in that are older veterans. They are that demographic that is most at risk. We do recommend going on with the sunset service on November the 11th at 4:45. We've been able to determine that we can safely spread those chairs out on the bluff so that it does keep people in more of a safe situation. Also, another major change is lighting of the trees. We want to hold that traditional date, that traditional Thursday date, but instead of having everybody come down and be in a great big mass of people, what we're asking to do is close streets at 5 p.m. to allow for pedestrian traffic only. We can turn on the lights, people can keep their distance, they can wear their masks, they can spread out and have a little bit more of a different experience than what they normally do. This would include no stage, no program, but we would be able to add in things. We'd be able to keep the snow, but we'd be able to add in photo opportunities with different characters like Mrs. Claus. And what we would like to do is purchase a brand new Christmas tree for that clock corner so that we really can utilize that as the center of town now that that is our property. Movie in the streets with the Downtown Fairhope Business Association. Instead of doing it in the streets this year, they're talking about doing, and I believe it might be confirmed that we'll be doing kind of a virtual one where residents can come pick up their goodie bags that includes the movie, the Polar Express movie in it, some popcorn and hot chocolate so that everybody can kind of watch it together. And then we don't really have a recommendation right now for the Christmas parade. If the order were to hold, I would say that we are not in any position to be able to hold that Christmas parade. We've all seen the crowds. We know how many people are there. The issue here is that people have to make plans. We don't want people spending money for something we're going to pull the plug on at the last minute. So those are our major things that we really need to talk through. My department is looking for guidance from you guys on how we want to proceed with that. Obviously, we want to make sure that we don't want to cancel Christmas. Let's just be honest. I'm not a Scrooge, but we do want to make sure that we don't get sideways with the state government because they do have an order in place. Again, we don't know how long that's going to last.
Council, comments?
First, I also do not want to cancel Christmas. Let's
Okay, good.
say that.
No Scrooges.
No Scrooges. You know, a lot can change in several months. I mean, they could come out and change it next week. I would think that we should plan as if we're having a Christmas parade and then change afterwards or change as we get closer. And I know as, being the liaison to the committee for the last couple of years, I know there's a lot of work that goes into it, and I don't want anybody spinning their wheels when it's something that we know may not happen. But I would sure hate to see it not happen.
And I just want to be clear, I mean, we'll do whatever work we need to do. My concern right now is that we have church groups and youth groups and baseball teams and football teams who spend the money to put those floats together. I do not want to be the person who has to say, sorry, you spent all that money on your float, go eat your candy yourself. So,
Well, I mean, I think everybody, right now probably understands that anything scheduled is tentative. Whether that be the Christmas parade or any other social function that currently exists, that everything is scheduled, or subject to change. It's from our end at least, whether it's, doing what we can to help and keeping it moving forward, I'd like to see us do that. I don't know what the drop dead date is for the Christmas parade.
I know that, I believe that applications are available now. It looks like we are asking for them back by the 31st, giving us the month of November to plan for it.
Yeah, and the rest of the stuff I know is a lot sooner, and we're still under the ordinance from the governor, so there's probably not a whole lot we can do about that, but I'd like to, as one of my final acts, see if we can have the Christmas parade. And then let Corey come in and be the Scrooge and vote no for the Christmas parade.
Councilman Boone, thoughts?
Mine's real simple. Unless the governor says we can't have it, I'm for having it. Other than that, I'm not
Do
for
you
getting
have-
arrested to doing it, but other than that, it's every man for himself. Let's go have a parade.
Do you have any thoughts on the other events that are in that packet?
I'd like to have them all, but I do agree with the fact that the Veterans Day affects a lot of the, older guys, and they feel bad about not coming if we did have
Sure.
it. So that may be a little bit different
Okay.
situation there. But the rest of them, I mean, again, unless the governor says I can't do it, I plan on doing it.
All right.
I'm gonna let the governor be the Scrooge.
So I'll kind of take these one by one. I may take the easiest first, and that's the Christmas parade. I think that's far enough off that I like your plan right now, is go ahead and mail out the applications, and they're due back on October 31st, so a final decision can be made after that time on the Christmas parade. So I would take a wait-and-see attitude on the Christmas parade. The movie in the streets, I would maybe wait to see what the governor's orders are for that, but I don't really have a problem with canceling that myself.
And it's not just our event either.
Pardon?
That is a joint event with the Downtown Fairhope Business Association. So we do have to take into consideration,
Well, and one of the things I want to say is that all of these people make a choice to attend or not attend, except for those people like yourself and city employees that, if we have it, have to work. So that's my concern, is putting city employees that aren't given the choice to attend or not to attend in maybe what they feel is an uncomfortable situation, a situation that they don't want to be in. So for that reason, I personally could punt on the movie in the streets. The lighting of the trees, I like your thoughts on that. I would because that's a little sooner. I would agree to adopt your recommendation on the lighting of the trees. That's me. And that is no centrally located, no stage, no gathering place for that, no countdown to turn the lights on, but close the streets and allow pedestrian traffic. That's not an organized, gathering of people. I do want to know, though, if staff feels like they would be put in a precarious situation, staff, police, people, first responders, people like that still do have to report to work for those events. So I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on that. As for the Veterans Day parade, I really hate canceling that, but I think that we're probably under orders that we could not have that. As far as, older veterans that might normally participate, I would say that that's their choice. But I think that they might want to attend as opposed to not want to attend. And What's really concerning for me is the veterans, that it might be their last Veterans Day parade to counsel something like that. So I have a hard time saying counsel it, but I don't think it's good optics necessarily to have it either. So for those reasons, there's some pros and cons. I'd probably be inclined to agree with the cancellation of it. And I'm going to speak for Councilman Brown because he and I have spoken about these. Councilman Brown's not for counseling any of these. Just fair, give his opinion. He's not for counseling any of these events, and just to hold them and people attend at their own risk. But those are my thoughts. I want to go back to the Veterans Day Parade because that's November the 11th, and plans would have to be made. Can I get an opinion, though, a little bit more about what you would, if you had to take a vote to hold or counsel, what would be your decision? Well, we can give two options there. If we're under a state mandated, we can't have it, then that's a no-brainer. But if that was to be lifted, what do you have?
If that was lifted, I'd say we have it.
I'd say we have it.
When is the current order? Do you know, Lisa, when the current order lives?
November 3rd?
I think it's after the election.
It's the 8th.
That's really close. And she's trended toward not extending that order until like the 3 days before the order expires for the last few months.
It's such a tough call. I'm not for counseling any of these, but also, if we're under an order, we can't have it. And I do think that that the optics may not be very good.
And the 8th is actually the day before the traditional Veterans Day Parade because it's held the Saturday before. The November the 11th is a Wednesday this year.
Yeah, that makes it even tougher.
I think that people are going to be pretty forgiving if we counsel it personally. I think people would understand. I think there might be less understanding in having it than there would be for not having it. People do understand it, but it's a tough call. Not any fun being councilman during a pandemic, I'll tell you that.
I'm glad we were able to squeeze it in before I'm out.
Any other thoughts, Councilman Boone?
Other than, like I said, if we're not gonna, if we can get arrested by having it, I'm saying we're not gonna have it.
So if that's going to be, if its current stay-at-home order is lifted on November the 8th, that means you could have the parade.
Next day.
So
I would vote to have it. I'm not saying we're gonna have it.
So you would say that you would have it if that order was lifted, right? And Robert Brown is a definite if it was lifted. There's no question about
Robert do
that.
it regardless.
So that's 3 votes, right? It doesn't even matter what Jimmy and I think, or I guess it would be, well, you don't even, if you're not here to vote, you won't even matter.
I'll be
But
out there
Lori,
to scowl at you from the crowd, deciding on what you figure.
How much trouble would it be for you to plan it, knowing that it might be canceled if the governor extends the stay-at-home? And she may not wait until the 8th to extend it, if she does extend it.
So there's a good point here, and that is that there are lots of organizations who participate in this who may go ahead and tell us that no, they're not going to participate. So your Veterans of Foreign Wars, because they are the people who are there, and your Cub Scouts, your Boy Scouts, your bands. I mean,
That's a really good point. We may fall on our face having a parade, too.
Was that something that we could find out?
Might be just the council marching.
In the next 2 weeks, is
Nobody else out there.
contacting some of these organizations that have normally participated and finding out in the event we were to have this, would you and your group participate, yes or no? And if there is very little to no cooperation with these groups in the event that it did go forward, then that makes the decision a lot easier.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Could you just give us some feedback at the next meeting, and we'll force Jay to make a decision
that's
before he gets off the hook?
And so just to clarify, we want to wait till the next meeting to make a decision on something that will be less than 2 weeks after that. I mean, I'm just
That's the
clarifying.
world we live in.
I know, I normally have a great big calendar in front of me, so that's how I work. Okay,
Yeah.
no problem there. Is there any
That's
guidance?
why we pay you the big bucks, Jessica.
Do it.
That's why we pay you the big bucks.
Is there any guidance on lighting of the trees at all,
I think the plan for lighting of the trees is good.
as it stands, or as we have previously done before?
No, as you've listed in here.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's say the governor's order's lifted.
Well, you're talking about a lot different level of crowd with lighting of
I
the trees.
think you're talking a
as
massive
opposed to-
crowd there.
I mean,
I kind of like the way it
historically,
is
yes.
planned, the way it's planned.
I mean, if we could figure out a way to have a Fairhope only lighting of the trees where only locals attended,
Double mask,
Yeah,
Mr.
good.
Allison
Wow.
has some.
That's not
Those
possible.
logistics
Good
would be
luck with
really
that.
fun.
That's not possible.
Yeah.
With what Jessica has planned for lighting of the trees, you had talked about the employees. By doing that, we can actually set the lights up on the timers and keep a lot of the employees away from any crowds that are potentially there. So for the employee safety with lighting of the trees, I think the way that this plan is definitely a lot safer for the employees.
Yeah.
Because we just have everything on timers, they come on, you can walk through.
But I do believe we would probably have to have staff. There would have to be staff
There's
on.
some staff there.
Absolutely,
Less
on.
than it would be if we're trying to coordinate.
I would just, I would avoid anything that would cause a gathering, but are you gonna have Miss Claus there?
Yes.
I mean, there's going to be a gathering either way.
I was gonna say, well, yeah, how do you
You
prevent
shut
people
those
from
streets down,
crowding
center
around
town, it'll be
that?
packed, no matter what you do. If it's on, it's on.
We've talked about selfie sticks so that you can stand away, that you've got spaces where you cannot get near.
You're gonna
our
put staple on the
characters.
street and make them stand
Put X's.
X, yeah, on the
And
street.
obviously, since this is new, it's not something we've done before in this format. It's going to take a little bit of planning, and it's going to take a little bit of give. I do think it's the safest option, not just for our residents, but also for our staff who has to be there. Because, I mean, it is kind of an all hands on deck. I think Chief is here, and sorry to put you on the spot, Chief, but, you know, her officers will be there. We want to really minimize how much exposure they get.
Councilman Bennett, any comments on the lighting of the trees plans?
Yeah, same one. I'm all for it.
You have it for the way they presented it?
How the way they present it.
Okay.
I still
think
feel it's gonna be a
that's-
pretty good congregation. Best we can do, at least we're giving it a shot.
There should be some deterrent, okay.
Okay, so from what I'm hearing, I'll come back to you guys in 2 weeks to discuss with you who would be prepared to participate if we were to go with the Veterans Day Parade on the 9th. And then we will also go ahead and proceed with the lighting of the trees as presented tonight to you. Is that correct?
Yes, that's
Awesome.
correct.
Thank you very
And
much.
a wait-and-see attitude on the Christmas parade.
I would like to say something about the Veterans Day Parade. As of right now, the Senior Citizens Center has not been open due to the COVID.
What now, I'm sorry?
The
Go
Senior
ahead,
Citizens
The
Matt.
Senior
Center.
Center, Nick Center, has not been allowed to be open due to this order.
Okay.
And that is the
So-
one that is maintained throughout each month. Even as they've lifted other orders, they've said we cannot open the Senior Center.
Okay, what's the connection to the
demographic.
Veterans Day Parade there?
The age group, same thing.
I see the age connection, but I still don't see that that's necessarily an order, that you can't have a parade that might be attended by, an older population. I don't know if I fail to see, there's young veterans too.
Robert?
Yeah, I think I got a hand raised in the back back there. Are you young?
It's all relative.
All right, it's tough, it's very tough.
Okay, so I'll proceed as we just discussed.
Okay.
If it looks, do I have permission, if it looks at the end of this week, after we've had discussions, I'd like to communicate with you
Sure,
so
you
that
can
you
always
can all have an
communicate.
awareness of where we are.
You can never
pretty
communicate too
quickly.
much.
That's a good thing.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Thank you. Jill?
Good afternoon. I had printed out the updated revenue figures that we had discussed last council meeting. And I just wanted to go over highlight the differences. Down at the bottom, under the projected total revenue, you'll see that the budget's showing $954,000 less than what was actually, what our actual numbers were for 2020. And two reasons for that. We had some airport grant revenue in there for $691,000, and in hindsight, I probably should have just taken that out. There's a corresponding expense that you're not seeing because we're just talking about revenues right now. But $691,000, and then we received $222,000 in financial excess tax, and we are not supposed to budget that. So those two together are $913,000. So that's why you're seeing the $954,000 less than what actually came in. And then down at the bottom, the transfers from impact fees for 2020 came in at approximately $1.4 million. But 2021's budget, we're only showing $350,000, so there's a huge difference there. As well as those proposed the pilot fee, which may or may not get changed, but as you can see, there's a big difference in that as well. We're still not sure about our capital purchases, so I'm not showing anything for the utility transfers coming in for those capital purchases, as well as the municipal capital improvement fund. So those are just a highlight of those differences.
Jill, explain that utility pilot fee of 8%.
That was something that Mayor Wilson had implemented, I think it was last year, basically just saying for the events that she wanted to do, and Mike might be able to explain where that's coming from a little bit more, but pretty much it offsets our community event. So instead of it being community development, it's called a pilot fee. What does that stand for, Mike? In lieu of
Payment in lieu of taxes.
payment in lieu of taxes.
Payment in lieu of
Okay.
taxes. So what it is if we were not a municipal utility, we would have a franchise fee. So it's basically the equivalent of a franchise fee for a municipally owned utility. By having a set percentage as your pilot, some people call it a PILT, it lets everybody budget accordingly. It lets utilities look at their budget because they know how much they're going to give to the city. It lets the city look at their budgets because they know how much is coming in. Obviously, as things happen during the year, that kind of switches around a little bit, but at least it gives you a budgeting number to know how much the utility's giving to the city.
But that's not an additional 8%
No,
on top of your
I think the
utility
mayor-
costs.
mayor
It's
was
it's a utility transfer to the general
Correct.
fund.
Correct.
Exactly.
Because if we were not municipally owned, we would pay.
You know, the one that,
Yeah, the
that's
one we
we-
don't
the
have.
one that the mayor said we didn't have?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Listed as another way, but all comes in the same way.
But it's a good budgeting tool.
Right. I don't have a problem with it. I have a problem with denying that it happens and when it does. Okay, Jill, go ahead, sorry.
Let's see, the sales tax I did reduce. If you look at your backup on page 2, that was over 9 million that was in there, and I put it back to pretty much where we are for 2020 actual.
Oh, that on the sales tax, Jill?
Yes, that's on sales tax.
Sorry.
The real estate taxes, I just left according to what we get from the Revenue Commissioner's office, less that 3% for the adjustments.
And that's a pretty dependable number, right? Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
What's that, 600,000?
So your main difference really is just, what I covered on the airport revenue, which is really kind of unknown, which I could have just backed out, and that financial institute tax of $222,000 that we are not allowed to budget for.
Right.
And then all the revenue down at the bottom is kind of a wishy-washy thing right now, other than the transfers from impact fees. We're pretty certain that that's about all we can muster up for 2021's budget.
Council, for those of you that might be wondering, I just did a quick calculation for the, well, let me ask you this before I make this comment. On the sales tax for 2020 end-of-year actual, that is through the end of September?
Yes.
Okay, so you did include, it is the full fiscal year. So that's about a 2%, in fact, it's exactly 2% shortfall on sales tax revenue, which is what I've been kind of cautioning about. You know, where that trend continue, I don't know. I hope it doesn't, but we do have to be mindful of that was a right at $600,000 shortfall. And then the other item that kind of jumps out at me, Council, is the and there's nothing wrong with any of this, but you just may not have it this year, was the roughly $1.4 million transfer from impact fee, which is shown as revenue, and that's the way to do it from an accounting standpoint, but it wasn't, you know, it was, I think it was money that we already had, right? It was just in an impact fee account. So
Correct.
You know, we transferred money from some number of account, whatever that number is designated at, 0600 to 0601, but we counted it as revenue. And in 2021, that's only projected to be 350. So that may or may not have been money that was actually collected in 2020. It might have been something that was collected over several years, and then we put it to use. So we brought it into the fold and called it revenue. So it was another way that if you back that out of the numbers and you look at the total projected revenue, you see that total projected revenue would then, you know, be $1.4 million less than what it actually is.
Right.
You take that with a $600,000 shortfall, and you may be $2 million less than what we had predicted. So just from my standpoint of being very conservative on revenue projections, which is what we tend to start debating a lot when we're putting together the budget, is a lot of times we want to focus on the spending when you really need to get that revenue side right. If you get that revenue side right, the spending is, to me, a little easier. Y'all have any questions for Jill? And Jill, I know that it may seem like we're not doing a lot with this budget numbers, but they are very helpful, and I think it does set the stage for passing a budget. We do have a resolution to keep the city funded now, but I do think it's also normal when you have a turnover in the administration, and just like we did for Mayor Wilson, we gave her an opportunity to take office, put her staff in a place before we adopted a budget, and I think we're affording the same opportunity for Mayor-elect Sullivan.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kim? And by the way, I really like when we have time to get these department reports. We don't always have this kind of time in a work session, but this is really extremely helpful for the council.
I just want to piggyback on Richard and the cleanup of debris. Cash flow, it's going to be tight. We do have a meeting with FEMA on Thursday, and so hopefully that will start us being able to start the project worksheets and then be able to start with hopefully the funding, but this is a reimbursement program, so I just want y'all to keep that in your back head here. Also, we've been working towards, we are changing our prescription drug program, so employees will be starting to receive a separate card in the mail. So as y'all are elected officials on our insurance, we'll start seeing a card in the mail, and we've been having weekly phone calls with the prescription drug program. So just trying to get all that rolled out. So it's, me and Therese has been working towards that. So that's kind of some update on us moving forward with a new stop loss and a change in the prescription drugs. That's it.
And Kim, I want to thank you again for you staying on top of that, all of you, and Sharice for staying on top of that. And you know, you've saved the taxpayers of Fairhope a tremendous amount of money. And I want to also calm any fears that employees may have, that their benefits may decrease. I'll assure you that that is not the case. Although the city is saving money, there are some measures in place to fill the void, which you may or may not think is going to occur. Is that fair enough to say, Kim?
Yes, sir. We're partnered with a company called RX Help that's going to help some employees that if they're having challenge getting a prescription, they're going to be ones to step in and assist the employee to be able to get manufacturer coupons. That's going to make it where the prescription drugs are free to very low cost.
Okay. Thank you. Very good. Chief Hollywood? Okay. Buford?
Good afternoon, Council. Just a very brief scheduling update for Council staff and citizens. The November Planning Commission meeting, first of all, that will catch us up due to the disruption we experienced following Hurricane Sally. That will be serve as a catch-up meeting and get us back on track. That meeting will be on Thursday, the 5th of November, moving the date to allow the special meeting on Monday, the 2nd of November. Any questions about scheduling-wise, Council?
That's going to be a long meeting.
I think, yes, sir, but I think it'll be manageable. I think it will
Okay.
be manageable. We'll be in good shape.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Don't you rotate on?
I'm not going to be pointing myself to that one, I'll tell you that. Michael Allison? If I have any say so.
Good evening. I just have a couple things real quick on the electric department. I just want to kind of mention again things we've talked about. There's still a lot of cable lines, telecommunication lines that are down. If citizens have that, they can always call us, let us know. We'll come out and take a look at it. And we can call AT&T or MediaCom. Not that we've had as much luck as citizens sometimes, but at least we can have another set of eyes on it and come out and verify that it is a comm line, and then at least give them another call. And I did want to update you. I asked the state for an extension for our gas regulatory issues, and they have granted me till January 31st. So they've given us a month to get some of the debris cleaned up and be able to get in and start doing those unprotected services. I've talked to Mr. Johnson, and I'm going to get a prioritized list of streets, and then we're going to make sure that those are on his list to get cleared the quickest. So we can get that done by January 31st now.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Cortinez, the happiest man in the world, best Facebook post of the week,
Yes.
Mr. Eric
Yeah,
Cortinez.
that's wonderful. Thank you, too, for that and everyone else that was involved. I want to make sure that the council and citizens know we have a Hurricane Sally tab on the front page of the website. And I'm getting a lot of calls of folks who are dealing with their insurance companies, dealing with a bunch of other issues. Under that tab, there's a drop box that says repairing your home, building requirements and contractors. And evidently, we have a lot of insurance companies and adjusters that need an education on coastal construction requirements, and we are doing that daily. Folks are getting estimates back or information back from their insurance company that does not meet our requirements. And so there's handouts on that site. There's also information about going to look for licensed contractors, fraud reports, things of that nature. So folks are welcome to call us or contact us. I've got especially roofs and windows. I got a call today from someone who had 4 or 5 windows that were blown out. And the quote they got back from their insurance company was putting in something that does not meet our requirements. So we're giving her information to pass on. But if folks have any issues with that as they're working their way through their insurance claims and through all these other things, they can refer to the website or they're welcome to call us. We're dealing with a lot of these things, and we've had some uncomfortable conversations with insurance companies, but it is what it is, and if they're going to do work down here, they're going to do it the way we want it done. Okay.
All right. Jason? Okay. Fire Department, Chief Ellis?
Good evening. I just wanted to give you an update on how busy we were for September. Normally, we run 80 to 90 calls a month. For September with the storm, we ran 216 calls for the whole month. From the 14th through the 30th, we ran 178 calls. So it was an extremely busy month. Everybody performed great. We didn't have any issues. This is also Fire Prevention Month. We've been out to the elementary schools last week. I mean, we followed the social distancing rules, obviously, but we did go out to each of the elementary schools and do our fire safety talk with them. Everybody had a good time, and we're about to go into the daycares as well. So, just wanted to give you a quick update.
All right.
Thank you.
Sharice? I'm drawing a blank. Mr. Montgomery? Okay. All right. Lisa, you have anything? Okay. We'll go ahead and end our department head updates, and we'll go to a quick review of the agenda items. Item number 5 is a final adoption of an ordinance to repeal and replace ordinance number 1541 and 1435, and to establish the bylaws of the Environmental Advisory Board, introduced at the last council meeting. Anybody have any questions on that? You should have some details in your book. This is Councilman Conyers' committee, and I believe he's on board with all of this, right? Okay. Item number 6 is a final adoption of an ordinance to amend ordinance number 843, Chapter 20, removing the words "except that bicycles may be pushed but not ridden on the pathway between Pure Avenue and Fells Avenue." And I believe that Councilman Brown is on that committee, and they recommended approval of that, and that was just simply removing that restriction. I believe you could ride your bike there as opposed to pushing it. Item number 7 is a resolution that the council supports Amendment 2 of the establishment of a toll authority to financially support and expeditiously construct the expansion of the Baldwin Beach Express 2. I think I'll maybe just withhold comments until such time that we get to that, but I believe that Councilor Boone, everybody has been briefed on this resolution and knows what it entails. So we'll cover that. I may just cover it for just a moment now as well, that this was something that when it was brought to me to be added to the agenda, I had a little bit of hesitation, but the more I learned about it, I really don't think that it affects our citizens. This is a much, much different scenario than a toll bridge across Mobile Bay, in which there's the only path across Mobile Bay. This, in fact, is just one that will be mostly used by tourists, and there are, numerous other paths to the Gulf from I-65 if you choose to take them. And I think if we have a citizen that's going to, north on I-65, they're more than likely going to take 225 or 31 to get to I-65, and they'll only take this express if they, just want to take a scenic route or something like that. It probably costs them time going on that. So I don't think that it adversely affects our population. I know that the Baldwin County Sheriff is in support because it provides for another evacuation route. That was a very good point, and most of the entire county has already passed resolutions in support of this. So seems to be something that we could certainly get behind and support as well.
You're the only holdup.
I was the only holdup, you say. Questioned it, that's for sure. All right, and item number 8, as I mentioned during Jill's report, that would be a resolution to allow the invoices and expenditures to continue as needed until the parts of the budget are adopted. And Kim, Jill, you'll be here during the meeting if we have any questions about that. Okay. Item number 9, this is to award the contract for engineering services. This is for the sewer upgrade phase 1. Will this be you, Mr. Allison, or you, Mr. Johnson? If we have questions about this, or Jessica, because it's Restore Act? Okay. Item number 10, If we have any questions, we can ask Pat. It's just an aerator for the golf department. Uh, 11 is to reject all the submittals for proposals for the professional planning services for the community-based comprehensive land use plan and re-advertise. Jessica, is this you? Would you give us a quick update on this, please?
Yes, and back on number 9, I wanted to recognize for a second that we do have Andy Bobie here from Dewberry. He'll be able to help answer any questions that you may have now or later. So for number 11, we discussed this, the council meeting right before the hurricane hit. We had quite a few, we have 4 planning services bids come back for the comprehensive land use plan, and only one of those was a complete bid packet. Because of the nature of the job, the ADCNR made a recommendation to us to reject all bids and put that portion of this grant back out on the street to be re-advertised. So basically restart that process again with kind of an addendum issued to people to make sure that they include everything that's on the checklist. That was the issue, is that things that were on the checklist were not included for most of the bids. You requested that I get with Marcus about this the last time we talked about this, which was that council meeting in September. Marcus and I finally had a chance, once we got through the hurricane, we finally had a chance to sit down and discuss it. He agreed with ADCNR's recommendation to reject all bids and throw it back out onto the street. The soonest that we could do that, if this action is taken tonight, is later this week. We've got a 3-week advertisement period, so this would put us closing that process out and opening bids by mid-November or so.
Okay.
And there was a second component to it that you don't see here tonight because Marcus also upheld ADCNR's recommendation. There are 2 components to this grant. One is the GIS service, the other is planning. GIS, we had 5 bids and 2 of them were complete bids. So his recommendation, it was obviously kind of ran right there with ADCNR, and that was for us to accept those 2 bids that were complete and use those to evaluate and select from.
So it's the land use, once again, the land use component of that bid, and the GIS bid.
The GIS is all good, so we
all
can
good.
continue the process that we started there, but the planning services has to be restarted.
Okay. Any questions for Jessica on that? All right. While you're up there, Jessica, do you have anything else on the agenda?
I don't think
Kind of
so.
looking through there.
Those are 2 big ones.
Okay. Item 12 is allows the mayor to enter into a contract with Terra X Explorations Incorporated to perform the archaeology monitoring for the Arts Alley Transit Hub project with a not to exceed limit of $10,000. We don't have a choice in that, guys. That's a tough pill to swallow there.
That is a tough, but yeah.
That's just a bunch of bull is what that is. Sorry, that's where the states say we needed an archaeologist on site because of the Indians stopping that from going forward. I think there's something that is politically motivated behind that. I'll just say that right there. And so whoever's feathers I'm ruffling by saying that, we'll know who the guilty party is. Item 13 authorizes the mayor to execute a contract for the ryegrass seed for the rec department, $58.07 per 50-pound bag. We need that. Pat, if we have any questions about that, that would be you, right? Item 14 is a resolution the city approves the negotiated price for HVAC parts and supplies from Whittington Supply. It's a cost unknown. Kim, would you explain that, please?
What this is, in the past year, we have like items in the AC parts, and we have gone over the $15,000 bid limit. So what we were trying to do is to be able to put out for bid a company that can give us be able to purchase all these parts. And you don't know when that AC is down, and us trying to bid out this particular unit. And this way, the maintenance department we won't have to worry about trying to check, we're at $15,000 and now this unit's out, and what do we do? And what have we had to do recently is we had to just go to a local AC company and get them to buy the AC and install it. That falls under something different. So us being able to go and negotiate with Whittigen, we'll be able to buy the type of ACs that's from that company. It's still, if we need a train, train has been bid out through our bid process, so that will still meet the bid laws. So you'll be able to go get a train unit. Carrier is a different company. It's been bid out. We can go to Carrier if they need a Carrier unit. But this is a local company that they'll be able to go locally and be able to purchase these miscellaneous items, or it could be these pack units. Is that right? It's some pack units or whatever's needed. But at the time, as of today, do we know what we need? No, it's not until we have a unit that's going to break. Does that help?
It does, Council. If you are looking at your computer, or if you're looking under tab number 14, you see some negotiated markup percentages on that. Kevin, you may have some experience with that, more than the rest of us. Do those look like, like decent markups? Decent as in decent for us. It's probably about towards one of the last pages. There you go. On the left side of the page there, on the left side, you see that negotiated markup column, and you see those numbers that are between 23 and 29%. I'm assuming that's the markup from a wholesale price.
That to me it's a tad high, but I don't know what you can do about it necessarily.
Well, I don't know what you do about it.
Roughly, it averages 30%, and that's.
I think what we find ourselves in is that we want to use certain brands, and as long as we want to use certain brands, these people have territories, and you have to go through these particular distributors. And I think we have to be careful about sending signals to these companies that we do business with that we're going to continue to do it just because we're that loyal to the brand. I think we have to, maybe send a signal that we're not afraid to go with a different brand if we can't get decent prices on this. And I'm not saying these are, but that I wasn't certain, Kevin, if that was a good price or an average price or a markup. But these were negotiated prices for this buying group out of Birmingham, and we could actually pay to join that group, but they've actually bid this to us without us having to join that buying group. At least Whittigen has. So I think, to me, this strategy for the city to make sure that we're getting the best that we can is to not always indicate to these people that we're going to go with one brand and one company. And I know that we have people, within the maintenance department that want to be loyal to certain brands because they think they're the most reliable and save the most money in the long run. But it's still tough if you give that indication. And I'll say it's also tough, even say when we're cleaning up the hurricane debris and we're calculating our damages, when we put a number out there in the press as to what we think it is, I guarantee you it's going to go to that number. If we raise that number and estimate it's going to be higher, it's going to go to that number. So I think we need to sit back and let them tell us what it is before we tell them exactly what we think it is. So I don't really know that we have a choice in this matter, but I think the only choice is to price different brands when we have to. But if you're fixing a Rude or a Fujitsu, this is who you have to go to.
That's correct. That was the deal on the animal shelter. We were limited to that brand, trying to go back and replace that one, and that's where you run into. And my understanding is if we would have went with a different brand, it would have been more work, more duct work that they had to do versus just doing a simple change out. So this was the best plan I could come up with to be able to get our maintenance department the materials they need and us try to stay within the bid laws.
can we go outside of our territory? Like, is there a territory in Pensacola or Mobile or Mississippi Gulf Coast that, you know, to see if there's or do we have to buy from these people because we are in this area?
I don't think we have to buy from them. Like I said, we are able to go, if there's a carrier unit, there's a distributor for the carrier unit that's been bid out through one of the buying groups. The train has been bid out. And we were just trying to make some of these other other, I guess, brands. You have an answer on?
And here's the biggest thing, Council President, is I don't know when the world changed, that Goodson has taken over Alabama. I mean, they had 21 distributors in Alabama, so they are the exclusive on Goodson, Green, and Rudd, meaning that if the city will legally buy those, we have to buy them through there. So if we need a companion compressor that's a Rudd or Green, really our only choice is to go to that distributor legally, so we're in their service territory.
That's what I was wondering,
That's
yeah.
the challenge we run into, and so
Yeah.
we exceeded that 15,000 because so many of the components that we have to maintain are products that they are exclusive distributors.
Yeah. Makes it pretty tough.
One nice thing about it is it's a 2-day turnaround for the park, which is guaranteed. I like to make sure they're held to that.
Wow. All right.
If you're gonna pay that.
I don't know, council, that we have a choice in that matter right now anyway. All right, thank you, Kim. Thanks, Richard. Okay, item 15 is the approval for the purchase of a grit classifier auger and guides for the sewer department.
Well, since we're having the sole source discussion.
Pardon?
Since we're having a sole source discussion.
Right, yeah. It is sole sourced?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So it's just some parts for the clarifier and the wastewater treatment plant.
And I will say that this is, it's unbudgeted, but you had included it in your 2021 budget. Any questions on that? Okay.
And on number 16, I actually just got a call from the gas superintendent. We're actually using the 6x18 leak clamps. We have to borrow one because we had none in stock. This was to give us one and a spare, so I think they're under the $7,500, so I'll probably be buying a third one, but we definitely need to get these clamps in.
Okay. Greenhouses, I'm on item number 17 now. Richard? These are going to be reimbursed, well, at least 87.5% will be reimbursed, right?
That is correct, and they fall under our insurance policy with the city, so that will be whatever insurance doesn't pay, FEMA will pick up that difference.
Okay.
And biggest issue, Council President, is that we can make do with the fall crop with not having these, but we've got to have these by the end of the year for the winter, for the months of January, February, March. So luckily, one of the Sourcewell groups does produce greenhouses, 3 of them for that price delivered here, and we will self-perform the erection of those and also be able to claim that cost of labor back through the public assistance as well.
So if we paid the full 12.5%, that'd be $4,800, and insurance is paying for that, so we're going to be probably well under that.
We got to meet our deductible first, so there'll still be some skin in the game.
Do you have to meet the deductible for just these buildings, or is there a citywide deductible?
As I understand it, we have a citywide 300,000, and we're going to exceed that. We're going to meet the deductible, and then, as I understand it, FEMA will then participate in covering that cost of the deductible up to 87.5%. So with
Right.
the state contributions.
You know, and it's just a matter of you can make up whatever you want to put. You could say the greenhouses meet the deductible or something else
Yes,
meets the
sir. Yes,
deductible. It just rolls the expense to something else that we're passing on.
That is correct.
FEMA, and I leave that up to you as to how you do that all, how you
We're going to leave that up to Kim. She's real good at that.
do all that.
stuff, so.
Yeah, fairly. That's going to be a tough job. Okay, I guess you could give a portion of that damage to the overall, you'd find out what percentage of that is, it is to the overall damage of the city, I guess, right? As to figure out how much of that goes to the deductible and how much you seek reimbursement for it.
My simple example was that, let's say that our insurance adjusters determine that we have $900,000 of damage of city facilities
Right.
citywide.
Right.
And so that means they're going to pay 66% because there's a $300,000 deductible.
Correct.
So, for example, if we do a project worksheet for FEMA, and let's say this one project, which is the greenhouses, works out with the labor to be, let's say, $60,000. Well, we already know that insurance is going to pay 66% of that, and then the remainder we can file for FEMA up to 87.5%. That's how I understand it.
Right.
So I think that's what will happen. Our insurance company will eventually come forth and say, here's what we think the total value of your damage is, less the deductible, this is what we owe you, and then that will give us the percentage to calculate from then on claiming back through FEMA.
Okay, item 18 is money to repair the damaged engine number 914. And where's Chief Ellis Leith? That's fine. Or that's one you really want to ask what happened there. But I mean, accidents do happen. They happen with public service vehicles. They happen with city vehicles, and nobody wants them to happen. So it might be best that we don't know exactly what happened. They were just in a fender bender, and there's $12,000 worth of damage. Paid by insurance, less deductible. So I guess we won't be paying that full amount, the way I understand it. All right, item 19 is the City of Fairhope vote to approve this unbudgeted procurement for Citizen Serve software to be used by the Planning and Building Department from Online Solutions. The cost of the first year would be $111,500 funded through the CARES Act. Mr. Cortinez or Buford, either one or both, what was that annual recurring cost for this?
The annual was, Kim, help me out, 37.5 split amongst the departments that are using the software. And that's actually based on just the number of users, subscribers that we have. It's a cloud-based system. So basically what you pay for is how many people do you want to have that have access to it.
And Mr. Cortinez, just to be
Yes, sir.
fair with you, I've been looking into this quite a bit, and I have uncovered that this is also something that could be done through our Munis software.
Not in the same, no. Well, let me back up. There are certain very limited functions that Munis can do. Munis is designed as an accounting software. A couple of years ago, I put in the budget to actually have a Munis tech come to our office and spent 2 days with us. And there are very limited abilities through Munis. The original proposal that we brought to you was to integrate something called InterGov, which is actually owned by Tyler. So the transfer of information back and forth would have been hopefully fairly smooth. But Munis is not designed for this. That's not what it's made for. It's made as an accounting software. It has a few features that you can do, something very basic. The goal with this, the other thing with Munis, is we would have to host all of that information, which includes buying servers, doing all of these things to be able to hold the information. With this, everything from planning, building, licensing, code enforcement, everything can be done through this software. Everything can be submitted and processed electronically, and it's cloud hosted. So we don't have the additional expense of the infrastructure that we need to be able to host the other system. And, you know, I use the example, Munis had some limited ability to do it, but you basically had to take 3 rights to make a left. This is designed specifically for online permitting, submittal, and information hosting. The reason we like this, and we actually had the full demo today in our office to go over it remotely with the Citizen Serve folks. The benefit to it also, Orange Beach uses this software, Gulf Shores uses it, Spanish Fort uses it, and Baldwin County is going live with it November 1st. So if we add Fairhope to that, as far as our contractors are concerned, that's 5 significant jurisdictions that are all using the same process, a single logon, a single process to submit these permits. So it is going to be much more convenient for the users.
Is there anybody at all in the county that you know of using the Munis software for online?
Not that I'm aware of,
submittals?
no.
Nobody's
No, sir.
ever used it?
Not to my knowledge. No, as a matter of fact, I don't know of any others that are, how many others do you know of that are actually using Munis in the county? For accounting.
And for anything?
For anything.
The commission is moving towards it this coming year.
Right.
And that city is City of Mobile.
Right.
Daphne.
Is Daphne using it? Okay, so Daphne's using it as well. And actually, you know, in the discussions today with CitizenServe reps, Baldwin County's transition is going to be very, very similar to ours because they're instituting CitizenServe November 1. They are transitioning to Munis for their accounting software, I'm assuming into this year, first of next, which is precisely the same thing we have. So in my discussions with them today, I requested that whomever is the case manager for CitizenServe for the county also be allowed to work with us because it's going to be very similar transfer processes to make it work. And the majority of our information that we use as far as parcels and tax data and all that comes from Baldwin County. So you're going to have 2 jurisdictions that kind of rely on each other for information that are going to be on the exact same systems, both for permitting and accounting.
I didn't want to start entering into an agreement with a software company if we found out, to say Baldwin County starts using Munis, and then they decide, well, I'm already paying for this module that can be used for planning and building purposes, and then they start training their people to use that and asking their people to use that.
Instead of Munis?
And then we've gone into this CitizenServe software, and regretted it to the tune of $37,000 a year. Is the Munis software that cumbersome that we can't ask our people to?
It is. I mean, it's just, we went through a demo on it, and that's not what it's made for. It has certain, like I said, it has certain limited capabilities, but as far as, you know, the biggest issue planning and building has is information management. We have emails coming to individual boxes, to group boxes. We have plans being dropped off to planning. We have plans being dropped off to building. We have plans that are going to public works. And we've got paperwork everywhere. That's the battle that we fight every day. So the most attractive component of this is to have it in a central location that's accessible by everybody electronically, so we're not handing paper off to each other. And, you know, for the development and building community, it's attractive because that would now be 5 major jurisdictions in Baldwin County that are all using the same system, essentially.
I can get that. I get the fact that it's all in
Sure.
one place, but I didn't want to duplicate I don't want to have a $37,000 expense for something that we may already be paying for through other software.
Yeah, it's a different capability. It's just, and that's why groups like, well, that's the reason why Munis owns Intergov, because the Munis system is not conducive to doing the things that planning and building departments do.
So
So
the
they
software is actually owned by Munis?
Yes, it is. Their system is owned by Munis.
Oh.
And that's what the city of Mobile uses. They actually bought this system to be able to integrate with theirs. The problem with Munis was, after we went through all the agreements and they knew we were on a time frame, they came back and said, well, it's going to be September, October 21 before you're active. That's not acceptable under the CARES Act. Whereas CitizenServe can get us up and running with the basic things that we need before the end of the year, which will meet the deadline to be reimbursable by the CARES Act.
All right, thank you, Eric.
Yes, sir.
Council, I have one more item, and that is I had Lisa type up a quick resolution that we need to purchase some furniture for City Hall. It's just slightly over the allowed limit for an unbudgeted item. It's $3,707, and I gave you some details. And I will ask you to approve this $3,700 expenditure if we can amend the agenda at the top of the meeting and put that on there as item number 20. With that, we'll go ahead and adjourn the agenda meeting, and I'll see everybody back here in about 10 minutes.